Yeah, they made stuff preschool when we applied. Yeah, it was like we're like number 27 on the
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and I just wanted to welcome you to our second community meeting for our Old National Highway LCI project. My name is Angela Rambo, and I am the Director of Planning with the collaborative firm, and we are leading the project. And to start, I just wanted to introduce the other team members that we have present tonight. Adam Ivory is our project manager. Trisha Kolpetzer in the back, hope I got that right, is our marketing and communications manager. Olivia Wineski is our staff planner. Somewhere we have Deanna Murphy with Sizemore, and they are in charge of the analysis and design for the Catalytic design sites. And we have Cole Smith with Kimberly Horn, and they are handling the transportation element of the project. Before we go further, I do want to acknowledge that we have a representative for Council Member Williams and Council Member Reeves in the House. Excellent. Do we have any other elected officials or representatives with us this evening?
Commissioner Harrington.
Excellent. Thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not thank our host this evening, Woods Memorial Baptist Church, for allowing us the use of their facilities. And also we have a city staff member, Ms. Marissa Jackson, right? The City of South Fulton is in attendance as well. So that brings us to the reason why we're here tonight. So staff has prepared a presentation for you to kind of give you an update of our progress of the plan so far. So we will talk about where we are in the process, and then we will kind of give you a general overview of the results as far of our exercises and activities that we have done to this date. And then we will also give you some other opportunities, share with you other opportunities and how you can stay engaged and involved in the process. Tonight is just one of many opportunities to stay engaged, and we really encourage you to do so. Your participation is what's going to make this process a success. So we hope to see you many more times. Oh, and so after the presentation, we need you to stay with us for a few more minutes. Out in the other room across the hall, we've set up some boards, and we just would like for you to take a few minutes to look at the boards and kind of ask questions. There's a little more details that we won't be touching on in the presentation, but ask questions, and we'd love your feedback on what you see on the boards. So with that, I think I covered everything. I'm going to turn it over to Adam.
All right. Thank you, Angela. So what I'm going to go over, everyone, is the agenda for this evening so that we can kind of go through all the different items that we're going to be going over. So first, we're going to go over where we're at in the project timeline. We're going to give you an update to that. Then next, we're going to give you a recap of the first community meeting back in June. Some of y'all may have been at that meeting, but for others that haven't, we'll give you a brief recap of that. Then next, we're going to give an overview of the assessment and inventory analysis that we've collected for the corridor. And then Deanna with Sizemore is going to go provide an overview of the Catalytic design workshop. And we've got some examples of some of those sites along the corridor. And then we're going to go over the recommendations and implementation overview. So with that, we're going to really capture the timeline and time period of some of these recommendations and kind of paint that picture for everyone when they could actually start seeing some of these results and outcomes from the study. And then lastly, we'll go over some of the next steps. So what's going to be coming down the road in regards of staying engaged for the study. So as a part of the project timeline update, the LCI grant, which is Livable Centers Initiative, was awarded to the City of South Fulton back in December of 2021. We began the assessment and analysis for the corridor back in late spring, early summer. And for those that were around, that's when we had met with that kickoff meeting at the beginning of June. And so that was really to roll out and get people aware of this study and the study process. Then during the summer, we had a Catalytic site plan, and we developed some of the concepts throughout some of the survey information that we have received thus far. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So kind of leading up to some of those next steps, we're going to be finalizing implementation strategy plans over the next month. And then we're going to be taking those recommendations to City Council for their ultimate adoption for this. But before that occurs, that adoption, we are going to be having a third community meeting. We'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of this presentation. So the first community meeting, we had over 100 individuals attend. We held that at Diamond Hall. That meeting was also streamed live as well from the city, and this meeting is as well. And so we had quite a bit of in-person attendees as well as folks that were streaming online as well. So the purpose and intent of that meeting was to get everyone aware and familiar with the LCI study for Old National. But we also wanted to get some input from the community stakeholders and meeting attendees at that meeting, where we wanted to capture what people's current perception of the corridor was, what their future vision was for the corridor, and then locations of interest that we should focus upon for our catalytic sites along the corridor. And then we wanted to also get some input on the transportation network for Old National. So next we're going to go over our assessment and inventory analysis. Now, we do have more detailed information if you want to look at the individual maps and talk to the project team in a little bit more detail about some of the analysis. But we're going to provide you with some of the takeaways from that. So first, with the natural features for the area, what we identified is that there's really only one green space in the along Old National corridor, and that's Old National Park. The area does have two wetland streams that travel on each side of the corridor. And so those are good opportunities to have improved connectivity that are non-motorized transportation, such as a greenway or walkway trails, things of that nature that get people off of Old National Corridor and really connect into the neighborhoods as well. So next we looked at population and demographic for the community. So how we capture that is we identified the 6 census tracts that surround the blue study area. And so it was a great opportunity to get this information since the 2020 census was just conducted. So it was really fresh information that we were able to collect. So within those 6 census tracts, and that includes 2 of those census tracts include the city of College Park. And that's more on the northern segment of the study area. So there's a total population within those 6 census tracts of just over 21,000 people. Now, the diversity of that is primarily made up of African American population base, and that ranges from 89 to 92%. So the population density for those 6 census tracts has a range of, at the peak, 3,200 to 1,100. Now, some of those census tracts are as they're not, the population base isn't the same, and that's because there's larger areas of undeveloped land in the city of College Park that adds to that lower population density range. And then lastly, the density of housing units. Now that ranges from over 1,500 in the larger, denser census tracts to over 800 in the smaller ones. So when we're looking at housing and socioeconomic, what we identified in regards of the percent of vacant houses that range from over 35%, and that was primarily in the College Park census tracts, to 11%. And that was mostly in the southern census tracts within the city of South Fulton. So the average household income within this range was between a high of $72,000, and again, that was kind of in those lower census tracts in the southern part of our study area in the city of South Fulton, to $35,000. And again, that was in those College Park census tracts. So just for comparison purposes, when comparing to other parts of the metro Atlanta region, the Pleasant Hill Road community in Gwinnett County, that range was at a peak about 89,000 to 49,000. So it was kind of in that range of 15 to 18,000 in the low to high range. So it just kind of paints a picture of, you know, how the city of South Fulton, how this Old National corridor kind of compares to another corridor within the region. Next, with the median household income, this ranged from over $70,000 to dollars per household income to $22,000 on a low. And again, geography that kind of matched the same. The lower was on the College Park end of things. And so next, the percent of zero-car households. Now this focuses really on the need of transit that some households may have. Now it may be need-based that this household has 0 cars, or it may be it's just pure choice that they have other means to get around besides owning their own car. And so this range was, at its peak, was 14% within the top census tract, and then 6% within the lowest census tract. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Cole, and he's going to give some of those takeaways for the transportation network.
Thank you, Adam. Everybody hear me fine in the back? Good. All right, so I'm Cole Smith. I'm with Kimley Horn, the transportation consultant. We did an extensive existing conditions analysis of the corridor, and we traveled the corridor quite a few times, both on foot and in a car, and wanted to highlight a few things that we saw. We do know that Old National and the 3+ miles of the corridor in the study area has good regional connectivity, obviously, with the 285 interchange at the top, but also with good Godby Road and Flat Shoals giving you connections east to the west. If the community is not already aware, there's also good transit service, with new transit service coming in the near future with a new bus rapid transit line that's planning to connect to the College Park MARTA station and to turn on Godby Road to head east into Clayton County. So that bus rapid transit service is expected to be continuing to go through the planning and development phases over the next 5 years. There have been some existing improvements that have been completed within the past 10 years, especially one that is most obvious is that there's a full set of sidewalks on both sides of Old National, and with the red stamped median or buffer between the sidewalk and the roadway, which provides a little bit extra pedestrian safety for people walking. There's also been a new pedestrian signal that's been installed near the Biscayne Road, the Biscayne apartments there. Other previous studies have recommended trails up and down the corridor, or connecting Burdette Park with the Old National Park. Those have not been built yet, but those are something we're considering and thinking about to whether or not we need to elevate that in the process. Some negative things that we've seen in the corridor is that the traffic signals are pretty far apart, and what that means is that it actually leads to a lot more speeding on the corridor, and it leads to a lot less pedestrian safety for crossing the street, especially at MARTA stops and MARTA shelters that are not near those signals, which causes some unfortunate situations with pedestrians and vehicles that are going at too high speeds. We do have a crash map, 3 different maps in the other room for you to look at to understand that a little bit more. Another challenge is that almost every parcel of land along Old National has its own driveway, which causes the higher speeds on Old National to have to slow down pretty quickly when people are turning into those businesses or turning out of those businesses, which causes conflict as well. Obviously, people crossing Old National, whether making a left turn into those or making a right turn into or out of them, could potentially cause some crashes, some rear ends, some side swipes, and some left turn crashes. I mentioned earlier the trails and paths are planned or are thought of, but there aren't currently any trails or paths, whether it's along the corridor or along some of the stream buffers that Adam had mentioned. The Aerotropolis CID has done an extensive trails master plan for the area, so we've looked at that and reviewed it. And then last but not least, I mentioned the crashes, but the vehicular crashes in particular, most of them are at the higher congestion areas, which I'm sure you guys know are the intersections closer to 285 and Godby Road, but then also down at Flat Shoals. So that's just kind of a high-level overview. I have some maps that go into some of those details if you want to look at those in the other room after the presentation, and then there's a couple of boards for us to gather a little bit of feedback from you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cole. Next, Al Lane, who is part of the collaborative firm team, he is going to go over the market analysis information for the corridor. Al?
Thank you, Adam. Thank you and good evening. When we begin to look at any process like this, particularly with the LCI, we want to look at the existing conditions along the corridor, what we have, so we can get some understanding of the kinds of needs, and also with your input, with the desires you have in the community. But what we're going to do this right now, this represents sort of a snapshot, a summary of the conditions that we found. We also looked at, by the way, we looked at housing, retail, and we also looked at office conditions in the corridor. And what we did is we began to look at the housing overall in terms of the area where the study area is located, and that's in zip code 30349. Now everybody knows that like the census tracts we looked at that Adam explained earlier, zip codes also overlap. As we know, 30349 overlaps into Riverdale, I think part of Atlanta, parts of College Park, as well as the City of South Fulton. But when you begin to look at market conditions, that's what retailers and developers look at. They don't just look at Old National Corridor or the block we live on. We look at a market, and they may look at things within 1 mile of the area, 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles, etc. So to get an understanding of how we approach this, you understand how they see the market. So what we have briefly is we looked at housing conditions, and everybody knows what's going on right now with the housing market. It's very volatile, but in the 30349 as well as with the city in Metro Atlanta overall, the housing market is very competitive elsewhere as well as here in South Fulton, and particularly in this zip code. You can see that the median price, these figures were gathered, we captured these in June of this year. And sometimes I tell people this data is only good as the day you get it. Because if you read tomorrow, these numbers will probably change in terms of the median household. The median sale price in 30349 for a single family home is $282,000. The vacancy rate is 7.7%. And I know in some communities we've seen it 10, 12%, but you're not going to see that today simply because the issue with housing in this market as well as all over the country is supply and demand. We have a lot of demand for houses and low supply. People can't find homes. I can share stories with my niece and her husband. They live in Ohio, and they were telling me they were approved for a loan at their bank. They saw a house they liked. They made an offer. The next day, someone comes along and makes a cash offer for more. And so you see that going on all over the country. You see it going on here. Very competitive housing market. Median home value is $276,000, so you can see that. In May of this year, we had over 300 homes sold in the 30349 zip code. Multifamily, we looked at that also, and you can just get an idea of the median rents. And this is just in the 30349. I will share with you, I looked at some data for Metro Atlanta for a one-bedroom apartment, okay? A one-bedroom apartment, monthly rent exceeds $1,700. And some of you probably know about that. But a studio is just over $1,000. A one-bedroom is $1,200. A two-bedroom is $1,400, and a three-bedroom is over $1,600 a month. We talk about projected growth. We'll get more into that detail in the plan itself. We'll talk about not only these numbers, but the demand, what they project we would need in this market. The business mix, we did an inventory in June of all the businesses in the study area. You know, Old National runs from Guybee Road all the way down to 138. But the boundaries of the study area, we looked at and we counted all the businesses within the study area. We have about 250 businesses. And you can see the the business mix, food services, medical services, institutional arts, manufacturing, etc. The South Fulton retail market, rents are going about $18 a square foot, which is kind of low, but compared to the metro area overall. The vacancy rate is at 2.2%, and that vacancy rate has to do with the fact that people were not moving. There's not a lot of new inventory out there, so wherever's available, people are moving into, and so we have that vacancy rate. The retail growth we look at for the submarket, and I'll talk about submarket later. We're looking at about 250,000 square feet projected. Now, what we need and what's projected is different because they look at historical trends and they look at what's happening in the marketplace right now. But that's basically an overview right now. We do have office data, which we just came into, and I'll have that available at our next, we meet next time and talk about what's happening in the market in terms of office availability and what the demand is for office. That's it.
All right, thank you, Al. So next we're going to go over our Catalytic site overview. And again, all of that data that we had just presented to you, all of that rolls up into where those needs and those opportunities and where it's most crucial to make those considerations for investment, future investment along the corridor. And so Deanna Sizemore Group is going to provide an overview of that.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. So we had a design workshop back in beginning of August, and that was a group of key stakeholders and our full consultant team got together to really start to look at the study area, the opportunities for redevelopment. So where are those key catalytic sites that we can look to invest energy and design and interest? The intent of that was to move from the analysis stage. You've heard an overview of the analysis up till this point of the presentation. So to move from what we know in terms of data about the corridor into visioning. So designing, actually putting pen to paper on what does this look like? What do we want this to look and feel like? So what we were able to do was identify 2 to 3 catalytic sites, the land uses that are appropriate for them, and the types of development that could go on them. So the 4 catalytic sites that we identified during that workshop are listed here, but to give you an idea of how we filtered that out is we looked at sites that were large enough for redevelopment. So we're looking at sites that are over 3 acres. Sites that have investment happening around them. So for example, our site on the top is a we're calling it the properties adjacent to the future bus rapid transit. So we know transportation investments happening at Godby Road in Old National, so it's a great opportunity for us to look at redevelopment along that area. Areas where there's high traffic. So for example, item number 3 is the LA Fitness Shopping Center. That's really a destination retail district. So there's a lot of cars coming through there. It's an opportunity to really start to look at opportunities for growth. So we'll start going through the sites here. The first one being our TOD adjacent site. So you've got Godby Road up on top here and Old National running through the center. On this next slide, you can see we have identified the bus rapid transit and node right at Godby and Old National. What we have here is 2 circles. One is a 5-minute walking radius from the bus rapid transit station, and then a 10-minute walking radius. And our 10-minute walking radius gets us down to about Biscayne Apartments. So within that range, the 10-minute is roughly the walking distance that average transit users are willing to walk in order to pick up this type of transit service. So we're looking at the opportunity within these circles for higher density redevelopment. The challenge we have is that, especially in South Fulton, so everything within this yellow line, they're small parcels. So they're smaller business parcels or single family parcels. So it would take the private development, the private investors to come and compile a lot of those parcels together to do this type of development. But over time, we're going to see that happen because there is interest already happening in this node, particularly in some of the larger sites like Old National Discount Mall, which is in College Park. Some of the types of developments are pictured here. We're looking at higher density mixed use multifamily, or what we call our missing middle development. So those are housing types between a single family and a higher density mixed use. Stuff like townhomes or what we call quads. So it's a single family house that's divided into 4 units or duplexes. Just looking at different housing types to increase the density near the transit opportunity. Our second site is here at Pleasant Hill and Burdett. You can see this is Old National Park, and this is World Changers Church, and this is actually their upper parking lot. So this is Burdett here, and this is Pleasant Hill here. And what we're looking at opportunities here is to really leverage the Old National Park as a community center. It's a really great facility, and there's some vacant or underutilized properties around it that we see for infill. So what we're proposing in this site plan is some type of civic use at the southern portion of the park here. So that could be a community center, a recreation center, a Boys and Girls Club, a YMCA, something that really plays off the opportunities of the sports fields at the park and provides some community needs and services. With that, we're looking at that as being an anchor civic building that then would have what we're calling kind of a main street retail. So you could have commercial and retail space lining up to that civic space, really creating a heart of the community. Above that, in this more underutilized property next to the park, we'd look at some type of multifamily, higher density housing to really start to infill and create some new housing opportunities along the corridor. We could see some commercial fronting Pleasant Hill. Maybe that's a small restaurant. Maybe it's even areas for food trucks to come and line the park. On the other side of Old National, over in the old World Changers parking lot, we're looking at the opportunity for infill housing. So we've seen in many case studies around the country where churches have property that's underutilized, and they're able to do affordable housing or senior housing that really helps to provide housing for their congregation and serve the community that they serve. I will note on all of these proposals we have, these are private property. So this really takes the investment of the private owner, of investors to come in and do this work. This isn't just in the hands of the county or the city. So we would be looking at partnerships to make that happen. At this point, we're just proposing conceptually a vision and where we think that the development can and should occur. The next site we looked at is site number 3, which is the LA Fitness site. There's a Burlington there, Marshalls. It's the newer shopping center development on Old National. And not a lot of redevelopment at this site, more opportunities to enhance what's already happening there. We're aware that a lot of community events have happened there. The city has moved facilities into the building. So we see a synergy of energy and investment happening at this area. So what we wanted to do is what we're calling placekeeping, opportunities to put in low cost, temporary setups so that when a festival or event comes to the parking lot, it's already easily organized to happen. So what we're showing in this diagram here is this is currently the main entrance into the shopping center. It could be closed off because it is a large parking lot, so there are a lot of ways around it. You could close off this portion of the street and set up festival tents and other events along that corridor. There's already trees, so it's nicely shaded. It's one of the more peaceful spaces within the shopping centers when it comes to tree coverage. We also identified 2 portions within the parking lot that are appropriate size for stuff like a pop-up ice skating rink or skate park, just temporary events that can happen. So what we're recommending is the opportunity to highlight those areas. You could paint the pavement. You can have more trees around that area to make it a much more pleasant experience. And then in the longer term, this could become a appropriated green space. So again, the shopping center would have to invest in this, but working in collaboration with the city, looking at a dedicated green space there for the festivals and events that are already occurring there. Other ideas in terms of placekeeping, there are a lot of art-related ideas. So creative crosswalks, like I said, you could paint the pavement in parts of the parking lot, but you could do this throughout the community, on Burdett Street, on Pleasant Hill, really creating something exciting that speaks to the community and the identity. There's also ideas shown here that are more interactive art, things that could come up temporarily, pop up in maybe that shopping center district to engage and excite. Ideas like pop-up movie theaters or theater shows, and then just interactive art to really have something exciting and fun to look at. The last site is down at the south side of Old National and Jonesboro Road. This is the Tri-County Station development. We looked at this site in the same way we're looking at all strip shopping centers along the corridor. So most of the shopping centers along the corridor are similar to this, where you've got a large parking lot and you have the strip center in the back of that. And visually, it's not very appealing from the street. So looking at opportunities to bring some of that development up towards the corridor. And here what we've proposed is keeping the existing anchor. There's a former grocery store on the site. So keeping that building, because it could be repurposed for another grocer, food hall I think was brought up at a meeting, other opportunities to utilize a larger building like that. We removed the accessory retail in this case and really started to relocate that towards the front of the parking lot along Old National, and then creating more of what we would call a Main Street feel coming down into that anchor store. Parking then would be hidden behind that so that your frontage along Old National would be more attractive. We also looked at keeping in this option Fit, which is an existing business in the shopping center. Currently they have got parking in front, but if we move their parking to the back, that opens up for a gateway or welcome sign into the city of South Fulton. This is actually at the boundary of the city, so we could have signage, a nice greenway, as an opportunity to welcome people into our community. North of that, we looked at the opportunity to incorporate housing to get more of this mixed use energy where you have more households that can then support that retail and restaurant growth. And
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. There were just a couple examples here I wanted to point out. Edgewood Retail District, there's anchors at this area. There's a Lowe's, there's a Publix, I believe, a Kroger, Target, but they have a nice main street entering into that facility so that when you're coming off of Moreland, you're not going right into a parking lot, you're going into a nice retail district. Another example is Smyrna Market Village, where you're coming in off of a major corridor, you have some restaurants, they actually have retail with housing above as their entrance into that little district. And with that, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Deanna. So as we start forming these list of these different types of recommendations, whether it's program, policy, or infrastructure, we really are seeking your input tonight on some of those examples. And so we'll have the opportunity after we wrap up this presentation to go across the hallway and kind of have those discussions in a little bit greater detail. So, but kind of in line with those recommendations, really wanted to provide you with a quick overview of the different types of recommendations that we're going to be providing as a part of the output of this study. So there's really two sets of recommendations, the 100-day action plan and the 5-year implementation plan. The 100-day action plan, now that will begin as soon as council officially adopts this plan. And so what that is a list of attainable action items that really ignite the implementation recommendations. And so it's basically the first initial steps to begin the coordination process. If it's a multi-agency, if the city needs to work with GDOT along Old National Corridor, or if the city needs to establish a certain type of committee to oversee a certain type of improvement overall for the corridor. But it really is those really quick, actionable items that can be accomplished within the 100-day period that really jumpstarts these implementable items in the 5-year plan. And typically, those 100-day action plan items are going to be low cost to no cost. It's really going to take up really staff time and staff coordination time in order to make that. So next is the 5-year implementation plan. Now, these consist of specific projects that will assist Old National in implementing these study recommendations that we're identifying. Now, it may include certain policy and land use recommendations. If it takes place of rezoning certain types of zoning districts along the corridor, but really that's that 5-year horizon that we're really looking for as a part of that process. And again, it's going to include economic development recommendations, zoning and land use, and transportation, just to provide some examples of what we're looking to provide in those recommendations captured in the 5-year implementation plan. So both of these project plan sets both comprise of what the action item is, what that actual recommendation will be for that project. Each one will also identify a planning level cost estimate so that we can capture if it's just staff time just to coordinate it, or if it's going to be a certain dollar value attached to that project. But that way we can start looking at different types of funding sources that will be required to help pay for these projects. So that way the city isn't 100% reliable just for all the funding of all these programs. There's other funding opportunities that may be out there that the city can target that to help assist and pay with these recommendations. And then we're also looking at who's going to be responsible for these improvements, and really identify and target that responsible party, so that this is a really crucial item to remember, is there's an assessment period of these recommendations, so that these projects and these recommendations don't just sit on a shelf, but they're constantly evaluated and looking for opportunities to find funding, find teaming partners to help implement these programs. So, and that's the whole idea, is to keep this plan fresh, keep it on the front burner, so that what the processes that we're developing right now stay on that front burner and stay, they're attainable projects and programs that we're looking to achieve with this. So again, we really want this to be a community developed plan. We've really tried to canvass the area, making sure that people are aware of the study, getting feedback about what those current perceptions of the corridor are for the community stakeholders, what the community's vision for the Old National Corridor. What does the community want to see long-term for Old National, and short-term for that matter? So we've attended several different types of events, from the First Friday cookouts that happened during the summer. There was an LCI visioning tour in College Park, where several stakeholders toured an LCI project site in City of College Park to see some of those examples of LCI recommendations that have been implemented, and kind of give that kind of best practice approach on what can be achieved through the LCI process. We've also met with the Old National Merchants Association and the Old National District as well, really trying to engage those business leaders and those stakeholders throughout this entire process. Also, we've tried to target the National Night Out and other types of community events as well. Really, again, we're trying to go at as many different types of community events to make people aware and to get constant feedback of this LCI study. So some of the future events that we're planning on attending is the upcoming Old National 5K, which is going to be September 17th. And then we're going to have a follow-up meeting, a community meeting number 3. And what we're looking at is October 27th for that. And that's where we're going to come back to y'all with project recommendations. And we're going to seek your input on those project recommendations to make sure, are these representative of what the community wants long-term for the Old National Corridor? So before we break off and go across the hall, wanted to see if there was any questions that you guys had. You can also ask questions when you look over at the data, if you want to ask a little bit more detailed, but kind of wanted to open the floor up first.
When it concerns the traffic flow, I see everything going up, and I looked over there, and I just happened to walk in, and he was talking about medians. I understand that some of them are necessary in certain places, like we have the median in the road up towards 285, but and it's been brought up in our community. I stand Old National subdivision, concerned about having a median that's going to come down Old National, and my point has always been. Now you mentioned Smyrna, Publix, Atlanta Road. I used to work up that way. I know that area very well. There's no median, only in the places that need, like at the intersections. 41, there's no median, only in those places that's closer to 285. The other example, and my point is this. Now I grew up here. In the 70s, Memorial Drive was thriving. It was the DeKalb Community College Central Campus. You had a lot of business up and down the corridor. It was fantastic. Time they put in a median, look at it today. It's a ghost town. Nobody's going to drive a mile down to come back to a restaurant. So I don't know where that is going, But that's one of the things in our community that we're definitely not embracing. Okay, is a median that go all the way up and down our area. That's just not going to work. That's not good for business at all.
Yeah, and for the folks in the back that might not have heard that, the gentleman, he had concerns for a median that would run the duration of Old National Corridor, and so that's one of the ideas that it's just one of the ideas or concepts that we're looking at. Not necessarily run the duration of the corridor, but that's part of some of the engagement that we've worked with the stakeholders and that we've collected is, we're really trying to listen to what some of those needs or issues are for the corridor. And then we're trying to go back and look at different types of improvements that have been utilized not only in Metro Atlanta, but in other communities as well across the country. And that, what type of solutions can we bring to Old National to help make it a safer travel environment along Old National. So we really do appreciate your input. Hopefully, there's a solution that we can develop with your input in regards of the possibilities of a hybrid of something, maybe certain locations that the median, not the entire span, but certain locations.
Well, the perfect example is the median right there in front of Biscayne. They changed it. Absolutely terrible. The people, it's only one car can get out, and this at an angle where it can be hit. They've had ever since I tell you how bad it is. They've never been able to put up the warning lights. They've never been able. Every time they put them up, they knock. They don't last a week. So they finally got smart, which they should have done in the beginning, and hung them from the street over the intersection. But it's still a horrific place. Why? Who was thinking that to put it in a curve in front of an entrance of an apartment? So just keep that in mind.
So we've got a couple of transportation boards across the hall, and Cole's going to be over there. And that's really why we're conducting these types of meetings, is we really want to get feedback on what would work for the corridor and what certain locations would something work and where would it wouldn't, so we can avoid those types of issues with any of those recommendations. So we appreciate your input. I guess in the kind of lighter green shirt in the aisle. Yes.
Okay. I was looking at when you talked about the green space, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's the only one on National Park. But I do see the other at the lake in College Park, kind of the beginning of Cater Creek. You'll see that
in that undeveloped
area. Why did you not? I realize it's in another jurisdiction,
yeah.
But how come you didn't mention anything about any plans for that as far as trails or some passive things?
Yes. So that property is actually the City of Atlanta property within the City of College Park. The southern portion of that, we just had discussions with the City of Atlanta about what their plans and intentions are for that property. So the airport's looking to retain that property for future aviation type of uses, for training facilities, something geared more towards the aviation industry. Now that's on the northern half of that undeveloped property. The southern half, which would impact the Old National Corridor, they're looking at potential for future mixed use along that area. Right now, it's currently zoned for the City of College Park as multifamily, but and again, this is further down the road for the City of Atlanta. They're just looking at different types of opportunities they have to develop that land. And so we have had discussions with them on that, and we've talked to them about the opportunity of having those types of trail connections along that waterway system to really extend transportation options outside of just Old National Corridor.
The second part of that is that I was hoping that we could kind of concentrate more on commercial and office instead of residential. But what has happened is that when they've done residential, you have some of the more denser things all out into areas that should have been reserved for single family. So what you do, and when you get the card, that's where you have the multifamily and townhomes and things. Once you spread out, it should have been solidly multifamily.
Yeah.
So we flipped it up now that, in my opinion, there's too much of that. And that just doesn't work on this card. If I looked at the original multifamily we had, Summer Tree, Pine Tree, and Camelot, when we put that all together, they never turn out well. And I just think for the health of it and for, us to have a thriving area in there, particularly in the shopping centers, that just needs to be reserved for more retail and more commercial, and let the outlying areas residential support that. Else we'll never get the commercial in there if we keep taking the valuable space and using that for residential.
Yeah. No, that's a great comment. We do have a land use. We have existing and future land use map across the hall and a zoning map. And those are the types of comments that we're looking for in regards of what zoning should some of this land be, be targeted for in regards of future development or existing development. So, please provide some of those comments so that we can capture that across the hall. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see I want to know, or I'd like to see some recommendations made to the council or to the city about sustainable beautification on Old National. Because it doesn't make sense to come up with a lot of ideas and recommendations if Old National is just going to stay dirty. One of the problems that I believe the city has internally is that Public Works doesn't have enough staff to deal with the issue of trash, of beautification, and responsibilities that are actually there. When people are driving down Old National and see that the trash can is overflowing in front of the police department, that is a horrible message. When I Googled the City of South Fulton, and what came up on the Google search was a mugshot of a young black man with the sheriff's office or what have you, the image that we have, number one, is not an image that anyone wants to come, bring their business, and invest in Old National. The second part is, even if you have these great ideas or people that want to come, if Old National stays dirty, no one picks up trash, you don't have enough trash cans, you don't change the mindset of some of the people that are adding to this problem, all these recommendations are just great thoughts, but it will never come to fruition if the city doesn't understand that you might need to hire another 10 people in public works. You might need to come up with a campaign for beautification, but Old National looks like a trash box. I lived off of Old National for 17 years. And at the tail end where I live, it's nicer, but it's not fair that everyone in this room that goes to work every day, that I know everyone in this room does not throw trash out their window to have to drive up and down what people call Old Nasty. This has to come to an end, and I don't think that if you don't address that issue up front, all this other stuff you're talking about, just great ideas, just great conversation.
Yeah, you're exactly correct, and that has been a theme that we have constantly heard throughout every level of our engagement. We've heard a theme similar to that, and that is definitely a high priority in regards of our recommendations. So we appreciate that. Yeah, yes, Michael.
Mr. Pritchard, I do know, good evening, first of all, I do know that thanks, Adam's doing a great job, and I don't want to jump in, but you're doing a great job. Linda, one of the things that you talked about, or you may recall this as well, years ago we started a Clean Communities Coalition about dirty stuff along this, Mike, you involved in that as well, along this corridor. One of the things that, and as Adam said earlier, this plan is no stronger than the citizens and the elected officials stand behind it. Adam is the leader and others, and Al and Sizemore and Kimberly Horn, we can do all we can, but until we get you as citizens and the council, I may get 5% in this, but I'm saying what I'm saying, and to stand behind it. You know, one of the things that Adam and I talked today, we had a conference call today with one of the elected officials, and we said, y'all going to do a branding piece at some point in time. A branding piece to say, this is who we are. I think there needs to be a rebranding of Old National Highway. Being born and raised here, one of my biggest frustrations when I was the county commissioner was trash. We increased the fines. We also brought more awareness. And what makes me madder than anything at all is when folk come down and they can put trash out of their window when they go north of 520, they don't do it. So we have to also make it a threat if you do it in our neighborhoods. So I do think it's going to have to be an awareness, and I don't know how he's the expert how we can put this as part of the plan to say here's some other things outside of the plan. Yes, Linda.
I will say on Mr. Hightower that I have coordinated community cleanups. Jill Lindsay does it all the time. Our backs are tired of picking up other people's trash. Today, if I did a community cleanup today, by Sunday, the trash is going to be right back. So the thing is, as residents, I hope I am speaking for people accurately, we're tired of it. We're tired of us having to do the job, and we do have a public works department, and I don't know if this plan should look at the expansion of it, or looking at, even with the waste management companies, having some plan for them to be involved in helping, come do a sweep maybe once a week, or, even the grass is too high. The beautification issue, I think, is the main issue.
Hey, how you doing? You hit the nail on the head. The City of South Fulton being a new city, when they first came out the gate, they didn't have a lot of different departments. They purchased a lot of buildings from Fulton County. They inherited some of Fulton County staff people, and they had kind of a skeleton crew starting out the gate. 2 to 3 years in, I feel that if COVID didn't happen, we would be much further along. The City of South Fulton would be much further along as far as filling up with our own staff. What I'm happy and pleased to say is that the City of South Fulton City Council has, in this new budget, FY23, they're going to be hiring a lot more people in public works. Right now, a lot of the services in the City of South Fulton is actually being provided by contractors. And those contractors are locked into just doing exactly what's on the contract itself. And there is so much to South Fulton. You have a city of almost 90 square miles, and you have about 475 employees. College Park has more than that, it's 11 square miles. So, 90 square miles versus 11 square miles, and you have just about the same amount of staff people for both. The City of South Fulton is moving towards trying to hire more people to do a lot of these services, but at the same time, like you said, your back's hurting, my back hurts a lot also. As you can imagine, working for the city and being involved in the community, anytime there's a trash pickup, I'm around, doing that. It's a culture issue when people throw trash. I can show once we go over here to the side, if you want to come up to me, I'll show you something on my phone that I just picked up 3 days ago, right in front of my office. There was a person that pulled up in front of my office on Roosevelt Highway. The guy got out, it looks like he just cleaned his car up. It was like a Jaguar or something like that, real nice car. He was spraying his wheels down and everything. His girlfriend or wife went into the store to purchase something. He came out, put some fluid in his gas tank, threw the bottle right down on the ground in front of me. So I filmed it, and I said, well, he went in his back seat again. He came up again, he filled it up again, dropped it right there on the ground. There was a trash can that was right beside him. I'm in a storefront retail spot, so I can look clear out the window to see what's going on. And then he had something that he was wiping off his car again, a napkin, that he threw it on the ground also. That just burned me up. The thing is that we as citizens, we as employees, we as people within the community, in our community, we have to report people like that and go ahead and have them locked down. I even got his tag number. but I'm keeping it because I'm going to use it on the presentation to show that these little things, these little cultural issue things, are things that we need to address if we are to be successful. Even if we had 130 people in the public work department by itself that just dedicated their life to picking up trash, we would still have the trash issue because people are going to, as you say, you clean it up one day, they're going to throw trash the next day. So the city council is working towards trying to address this, and like you said before, it has to be a collective effort amongst all of us, and we cannot simply, just try to put the infrastructure in because you have infrastructure and then people will throw trash on a nice development. We can't have it.
I may want to be helpful. One last comment. If I make one last comment.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you introduce yourself?
I apologize. My name is Artie Jones. I'm the new Economic Development Director for the City of South Fulton. I've been here about 111 days now. I'm not counting. I've enjoyed my stay so far, but I'm learning a lot about the community, and I'm just trying to, participate. And so you'll see a lot more of me.
And I'm sorry, I'm Michael Hoptop, managing partner with the Collaborative firm. I need to introduce myself. One final point. What's also helpful is not us. I wish we could have a way with things that you may think of that could be done that we're not thinking about. So if you have some ideas that you may say, hey, Adam was at the Burger King and he did something unusual. He wasn't him. But think of some unique ways how we can, things that we don't think about, the auditor won't think about, that the city council may not think about. Let this auditor, I know I'm not with the city, but that means because trash in the hoods is a problem. We got to change the culture of our community. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm
No. Thank you, guys. Yes.
I understand this is development, but there is another part to this whole process too. And it may not be a topic of discussion here, but the council has to be aware of as you expand or increase the development in an area, you also have to start to think about the expansion of public safety. And these are issues that are not plaguing a lot of the cities on the north end, is that the development came and public safety didn't expand proportionately. So has the council been briefed on that, or is there a component that you guys are recommending that we're not getting here?
So similar to the litter, that has been, again, another theme that we've captured in our outreach at all levels. And we are looking at opportunities of not just adding infrastructure investment, but also, we're also looking at opportunities to build a sustainable community. Because if we expand too quickly, we're having issues, or, the community sounds like it's having issues with certain upkeep and safety. So what we want to have is we want to create the foundation so that future investment can be sustainable, so that there are programs or policies that can be targeted and set in place to prevent or to enhance safety in these areas and make it a safe environment for people to come shop, to eat. We really want to create that placemaking for the Old National Corridor, so that grandparents can bring their grandchildren to different shops or different events along the corridor. And so those are all different elements that we're looking to identify recommendations for. And so again, we are going to be targeting different types of ways to implement those and to integrate that into the current city's policies. But that's how we're trying to align our set of recommendations. It's not just infrastructure improvements, but it's how can we make this overall a better enhanced placemaking opportunity for the Old National Corridor.
I have a question. I have a business down out there, and I just came over and I now have a business at the Old National Commons, South Fulton Studios. I'm a little bit confused of how this area trash cans. So I did it anyway. I went and got some small trash cans and I put it in front of where my business is. And people started putting trash in the trash can.
Okay.
So it's something as simple as like in downtown Fairburn, there are city trash cans on the sidewalk of the businesses. I get it that that's a plaza. There's other plazas that have trash cans in the mediums of the parking lot. So what is so hard about that? Or can the city, make sure that the owners of the businesses are liable to have trash cans? Something as simple as that. Even if they don't put it in a trash can, I'm telling you myself, I've only been there for about 2-3 months. And as soon as I took the trash cans there, they started putting garbage in the trash can.
So, please stay behind Artie Jones as a business owner in the city of South Fulton. Economic Development Director Artie Jones, he will meet with you right after we get done with this. He'll get your information and kind of point you in the right direction within the city, who you need to contact and work with. So.
I was just going to ask, at some point, can we have something in print from the young lady that had the 4 different quarters and the projections of what you wanted to put there, so we can kind of study it and see it a little more, or just kind of put it in our mind? Because I'm thinking, I didn't hear, but I have ideas like for my grandchild, a safe place where they can climb and run in a building that's air conditioned and safe for them, or a little historic building of Old National, or something like that. I would like to see that.
So after we get done in here, perfect opportunity next door. We actually have those same renderings of those 4 sites. And that's the type of input that we're trying to capture tonight. And so, yes, please, Deanna will be across the hall. Please, yes, I mean, we really, that's the type of things that we're looking to get out tonight. And that's why we're having these types of meetings. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the purple, sorry.
Yes, with that, piggybacking on what you're saying, do you have a formal mechanism to get some of those ideas in a survey form or any other type of form that you will send back to us? And will we get copies of the presentation in electronic form so that we can digest that information and continue the conversation?
So, thank you for bringing that up. So we've got a hard copy of the survey. Also, we have a QR code of the survey as well. You can take your smartphones out, take a picture of it.
And for hard copy,
yeah, we can pass out the hard copy.
And a copy of the presentation will be available on the City of South Fulton's webpage as well.
All right, sir in the green.
Yeah, I think we've done well at identifying the problem, such as a cultural issue. I want to know, could we look at putting a group of politicians and citizens together, now that we've identified, to see what can the solution be?
Yeah. I mean, those are all certain types of solutions that we're looking to identify. How can we get traction from the community to provide that type of input moving forward for the corridor? So
that's part of the work plan after it's over. Maybe that's how can we do it? Talk about your work plan after it's over. Okay.
Yeah. So the initiation of a committee, such as what you're using as an example, that's what we would try to identify within that 100-day action plan. And again, just to reiterate again, that 100-day action plan, it will start as soon as council adopts this plan. So that following 3 months. Yes, ma'am.
I want to make this meeting about some of our community problems in the city of South Fulton, i.e. trash. However, I do know that some of the businesses are not taking ownership of trash that's on their property. And when I've gone in some of the businesses and said, do you see all the trash in your parking lot? And I had somebody to clean up this morning. I said, well, I wasn't here this morning. I'm here now, and your parking lot is packed with trash. Well, so I think if we look at the possibility of finding some of these businesses, and I'm from the Boycott area, so stop using their services, and we'll get their attention. I am concerned about the nice projects that you have planned before us, and if we have this current problem right now, and we're still having this problem, all these nice things that we're about to impact upon are not going to be nice, because it is some people, it is the community, it is outsiders coming into the community, and it is businesses that it's a problem across the board. But I can see this beautiful park that you're talking about not being so beautiful within a month if we don't go into this with some type of plan in place.
Yeah, and it definitely goes hand in hand in regards of taking care of what's already here, and then investing in future development as well. And as Deanna had mentioned, a lot of these examples are private development driven. And so if somebody's going to invest money into an area, they want to invest in an area that's well kept and taken care of. And so you kind of have to take care of what's there already for future development to occur as well.
You mentioned Martyr and another station.
Do me a favor. Arthur, you want to address some of this that what she's talking about as far as business ownership inside that? You think you want to add to what she's asking about? But.
Well, definitely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head once again. There are businesses that don't take ownership of the trash and everything. There are some. I would say these developers that own these complexes where they have multiple units where they're leasing this space out from retailers. Some of them, by design, don't put trash cans out so that people will have to take their trash elsewhere and throw it out. So it's just a matter of us figuring out who that is, working with Brian Morris, code enforcement, who does an excellent job. He has about 12 to 15 officers. If you provide that information to us to let us know where those problem areas are, we can get the guys out there to hold those businesses accountable. And eventually, after going to court a number of times and being fined a number of times, they will be accountable.
Well, I can provide that to you right now. Drive down on that. You can start at Flat Shows and Old National at the Dunkin' Donuts, Martyr, whatever you call it. It's filthy. You don't have to go far. You can walk a block down Old National, and you'll get a gist of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I see it all the time, especially around the MARTA stops, and you see the grass is overgrown and the trash is overflowing and everything. Some businesses will be pristine, won't have a thing on them. They'll be nice, cleaned up, and the grass is finally manicured. But what I see more often is the trash, the overgrown grass, just people not taking care of their properties. The thing is that as a homeowner, you have responsibilities. As a renter, you have responsibilities. And as a business owner, you have responsibilities also. And if you're going to be held accountable to live here, business owners should be accountable to run their business here also. Just one.
And so I'm asking you to look at the process you have in place in identifying and punishing those individuals that are not keeping their property up. If it's going to take 6 months to get them in court and to get fined, you're not doing a service for us. So just look at the process. I don't know what it is, but to me, you snap a picture, your place is filthy, here's your ticket. I understand that. So if I speed in a school zone, I don't have a problem getting a ticket. It's not a 6-month deal. But I can't understand why it takes so long to deal with a situation that is horrendous for our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you to look at.
And one thing that, and I know as a resident, when you see the same trash, you see the same areas dirty day after day after day, it doesn't look like there's any progress being made. But there is significant progress that's being made. It's just that the citizens aren't aware of it, and maybe that the, I guess, code enforcement and other departments need to put their efforts in other areas to concentrate in those areas also. Right now, the City of South Fulton is just kind of scratching on the surface and being able to address a lot of what's going on. But like I said, because of the culture and because it's cleaned up, you know, pretty much weekly or every 2 or 3 days, some businesses, I see you shaking your head, but because it's being done so often, it looks like nothing is being done. But I will talk with Brian Morris, and I know enough about code enforcement to be dangerous. I'm not code enforcement, but I will speak with code enforcement to see what they can do to put more attention on holding businesses along the Old National Corridor accountable for the properties that they actually do business out of.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
We can do something also. I live in Best State in Old National.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've been there 27 years. There was no CVS on that corner. CVS came, they kept the grass cut, the crepe myrtles were beautiful and everything. A couple of months back, I spoke with the manager up there. I said, what's going on with the outside? Trash, everything. He said, I just got here. He said, I called corporate and told them to send someone out to clean this property up. I waited 2 weeks, still nobody. I called corporate. And I gave them a message. I said, I've been here a certain number of years. You used to keep it such and so. Please don't make me feel as if, because this is an urban area, that you don't want to come out and do what you started when you put this place here. I said, because if that's the part, if that's how you're going to do it, I'm going to get on social media and let everybody know just what CVS is doing at Best State and Old National. I said, there's going to be a lot more chiming in. They sent somebody to start cutting the grass, cutting the hedges. So it's a lot we can do to stop waiting on code inspectors, because I call them a lot and they don't come out, and I don't even get to see it anymore. Sometimes they do, but like he said, if they don't have enough people, they don't have enough people. But we can call these corporate offices and let them know. I had to do it with Lowe's, and let me tell you, they jump on it because they do not want that. Their social media is fire. You know, I mean, that thing takes off.
Yes.
And they started cutting the grass up there. I'm watching them still. But when you start talking about social media, and is this how y'all do people in urban areas and things like that, if they can't notice, they will. So we can't just sit back and say.
So you heard it. Let's put them on blast.
So we do want to be considerate of everyone's time, and we really want this to be kind of a two-part and have as many people go across the hall and provide additional comments as well. Our project team will be here as long as the church will let us stay to answer any questions that you get. We'll do one more time for one question. So I think, sir, you've had your hand up for a while.
Kind of shifting back to why we actually were here. You had mentioned the Tri-City Plaza, the Tri-City Station up on 138 and Old National.
Yes, sir.
Did that include the redevelopment of that plaza as a whole?
I'll let Deanna answer that with Sizemore.
Yeah, so we looked at redevelopment of the whole plaza, but keeping certain businesses or buildings that were larger or substantial enough. So keeping that anchor, the former grocery store in Fit, which is active. There's a McDonald's there that we don't want to get into too many lease issues, and these are long-term concepts, but the idea of the whole site.
Yeah, and important, it's concepts. And so it's private property. These are all just concepts of what the potential of the corridor, future vision of the corridor could have. And so that's all, it's just a concept. So, all right, like I said, a project team, we're here to answer any questions that you guys have. But, we definitely would like to get more input from y'all. If you want to go across the hall, we've got a series of boards. A lot of it's some of the information that you've already seen that you can provide on those concept sites. So we appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, one final thing. Since this is a community meeting, wanted to provide the forum to make a community announcement.
My name is Reginald Shelton. I'm the Vice President of the Voluntary Homeowners Association,